One type of vocalist is someone who performs songs, while another type of singer is someone who lives inside their music. This later individual was John Foster. In every instance in which he entered a recording studio or onto the stage, he was not merely singing. Rather, he was bringing fragments of himself into the world, meticulously encased within melodies and lyrics. In addition, there was a certain segment of his most recent tune that he cherished more than any other part of his whole discography ever produced. In no way was it the most notable. The hook that fans kept playing over and over again was not the hook. The bridge, which the filmmakers repeatedly referred to as commercial gold, was not even the bridge. On the contrary, John's favorite moment was a section that was so brief that some listeners would miss its depth if they weren't paying attention to it. This section was located in the middle of the song. Regarding John, however, that particular segment represented the essence of the entire track. And at this point, as John saw the song begin to travel over playlists, fan edits, reactions, and personal remarks, he had only one hope: that everyone who was listening continued to feel what he felt. They would not simply push play, rather, they would connect with one another. That part, that completely transformed everything. The section that John cherished was constructed during a studio session that took place late at night. It was one of those unoccupied hours when everyone else was asleep, with the exception of those individuals who had a profound belief in sound. In addition to the fact that the lights were dim, the city outside was quiet, and there was an electric sensation in the air. As John sat down to record the vocals, he did not perform them with the intention of impressing anyone, but rather whispered them as if they were a confession. They were uncooked, being susceptible to harm, the truth. Whenever he hears it again, he still remembers the same sensation he experienced while recording it. He recalls the way his hands shook, the way his heart shattered a little bit, and the way the words felt like they were flowing out of a wound that was finally ready to breathe. After it was over, everyone in the studio held their breath in anticipation. It was clear to them that they had recorded something genuine, rather unpolished, not without flaws, the truth. Music as a mediator and a reminder of memories. Performer John Foster did not always exude an air of self-assurance. He performed by himself in places where no one clapped, halls that resounded with the sounds of grief, confusion, fear, and hope. This was a long time before his melodies were recognized by his followers. Before it became his field of work, music served as his safe haven. This is the reason why he placed importance on this particular segment. It was the portion of the performance in which he did not act, would not perform, and would not entertain. Without any protection, it was his voice that conveyed the narrative of each and every instance in which music was the only thing that remained. It may have a lovely sound for those who are fans. On the other hand, John recognizes the sound, as if at home, the same way that he is still unpacking a recollection. The reason he hopes that everyone continues to love this track is not because of its popularity on streaming services or the charts. Rather, it is because there is something precious about discovering a listener who understands you without ever having the opportunity to meet you. A still moment in the midst of a noisy industry. The world of music is obsessed with noise, which includes dazzling lights, rapid hits, exploding trends, viral clips, inventive marketing, and streams that are measured in millions. However, not every aspect of a song is designed to cause an explosion. Some elements, such as John's favorite passage, are designed to be discovered gradually, much like a secret that can only be deciphered by the heart. John kept coming back to the soft point in the center, the point where everything else faded away, and it was just his voice and the truth behind it. Others around him applauded larger moments, such as the chorus that audiences scream and the beat drop that DJs loop at festivals. However, John kept coming back to the soft spot. Even as he was in the middle of rehearsals, he found himself anticipating that moment with the same fervor as a heartbeat. He did not wish to exaggerate the impact. He had no desire to alter it in any way. His intention was to safeguard it. Certain sections of songs are not intended to be performed, rather, they are intended to be experienced. The fans start to feel it as well. In a gradual manner, messages began to arrive. not from listeners who are merely interested, but from survivors who have experienced emotional trauma. Someone stated that they were unable to describe why they cried when that particular part was played, but in that moment, they felt as like something deep within them had been comprehended. Someone else mentioned that the moment brought to mind a talk that they had never had the opportunity to have with a person they had lost. During a panic attack, one fan wanted to stop shaking, so they played that piece over and over again while they were parked in their car. John calmly read each and every message. It dawned on him at that moment that this part was no longer solely his. Music is not the property of the person who creates it, rather, it is the property of the person who requires it. What it means to love something that isn't the loudest. Even when he was in the practice room, John would find himself laughing just before the moment arrived. The musicians were aware of it as well. They were able to observe the change in his physique, the sagging of his shoulders, and the manner in which he closed his eyes as if he were re-establishing a connection with something that only he could see. Due to the fact that that particular section was not written for radio or applause, it was written in order to provide relief. When it comes to music, not every favorite moment is the most significant one. At times, the most favored part is the most subdued breath that comes just before the song breaks. Occasionally, it is the lyric that you almost chose to keep to yourself. At other instances, it is a component that you certainly did not anticipate anyone noticing until they did. It is as if someone has just gazed into your heart and said, "I see that too." This is the feeling you get when someone do this. From the artist to the listener, a conversation that is not heard. John does not have to elaborate on the reason why he liked that particular section. The explanation was already provided by the music. Music is a discourse in which only one person talks, yet both parties feel as though they have been heard. It is the same piece that meant the most to John that now means the most to strangers. Strangers who press play at 2 in the morning, drive home in silence with the music playing on repeat, or send the lyric to someone they miss are examples of strangers who give this section the most significance. This is the connection that John intended to achieve, not fame, not virality, but connection alone. For example, the kind that transforms a track into a lifeline. The meaning behind the song in its entirety. On the other hand, there is always a fundamental truth that lies behind the production, beneath the harmonies, and beneath the tale. That particular favorite piece was when the truth was found in this song. It was the time when everything else stopped trying to hold itself together and simply let go. It was a relief for John to experience. Listeners looked at it as if it were a mirror. In the context of the song, it formed its individuality. At that moment, the favorite part of the song was no longer only a component of the song. Rather, it was the core of the entire experience. Hope is the engine that propels an artist. John watches with a sense of thankfulness as people continue to stream the track, share it with their friends, make tweaks to it, and quote the emotive parts online. It is not for the purpose of gaining acceptance or attention. Rather, it is to determine whether or not others have a reaction. Because when it comes to an artist like him, liking the beat is not the same thing as enjoying the song. The key is to discover what the meaning is. It is about allowing the music to voice itself in situations where words alone are insufficient. Having the knowledge that someone in a distant location clicked play and whispered in their innermost thoughts. Yes, I am familiar with this sensation. Just that was all he ever desired. It is the one thing he still has hope for. Songs that are louder will always be available. Bigger hits are always going to be available. But every once in a while, a song finds its way into your life that serves as a gentle reminder that the most powerful moment may also be the most tender. That the most vulnerable moment of a singer's performance could be their favorite section, even if it is not the highest note. It is not necessary for the music to be flawless. Rather, it must be authentic. Through that particular section, John Foster shared a portion of himself with the entire world. Now every single person that listens to it and feels it is the one who keeps that piece alive. This song, like any other music, will ultimately lose its appeal. On the other hand, the part that he loved the most. Those individuals who were in greatest need of it will hear that. The reason for this is that music has the ability to transform what was previously a private moment into a communal healing experience. And tonight, somewhere, someone touches the play button, reaches that particular section, John's favorite, and has a sense of being understood. And that alone is enough to justify listening to the entire song.